You're listening to the Platte River Bard. What a special treat it was to sit down with Dr. Arthur Feinsod, guest director of Our Town at the Nebraska Repertory Theatre that opens April 13th. Dr. Feinsod has served as artistic director for Crossroads Repertory Theatre in Terre Haute, Indiana. He also co-founded and served as artistic director for Theater 7, where he staged plays that included Death of a Salesman in the historic Indiana Theatre. As a playwright, he has written Malcolm's Call, Table 17, Between the Dams, and Coming to See Aunt Sophie. He taught theater at Trinity College in Hartford, and he served as resident dramaturg with the Hartford Stage Company. Between 2001 and 2021, he was a professor of theater at the Honors College at Indiana State University, where he received the Caleb Mills Award for Excellence in Teaching and the Theodore Dreiser Award for Research in Creativity. His immense talent and experience has brought us to the reimagination and inclusion of the story of Our Town. And due to his great working relationship with composer Craig Wirtz, we will see this play with Craig's newly developed score. We are so privileged to speak with him today about his experience and his production. We know you will be too.
Hello, and welcome to the Platte River Bard. This is Chris Berger.
And I'm Sherry Berger.
And we are here today with Arthur Feinsod. He's a director and professor emeritus at the Indiana State University, and he's the current director of the upcoming Our Town at the Nebraska Rep, and he's going to talk to us about that because there's a lot going on with this particular production. Thank you for talking with us,
My
sir.
pleasure. Nice to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Nebraska.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Lincoln,
Nice
actually,
to be
yes.
here.
Yeah, is this your first time in Nebraska?
No, I've been here several times.
You have?
Actually, at Nebraska Rep or at the University of Nebraska
Oh.
teaching. I taught a class on mask acting and on various other subjects. So I've been around here. Yeah.
So you understand the weather.
I do. I
Situation.
do. Not too much different from Terre Haute, Indiana.
That's true.
They're pretty sad.
That
too
is
much
true.
different.
Well, you're originally from New York.
Correct. I grew up on Long Island, Roslyn, Long Island, and in fact, I developed a great interest in theater early on, and studied acting in New York City with Sonia Moore, who had studied under Stanislavski in Russia.
Nice.
So I learned from the best, even when I was in high school. She was an amazing teacher and a big influence on me. And I also was in school plays through high school and continued a little bit of acting at college at Harvard. Harvard didn't have a theater major, so I was a government major, a political science, they called it government, concentrating in political theory. But on the side, I directed four full-length plays while I was a student there at the Loeb Experimental Theater. And I also taught at a maximum security prison, a Walpole State Prison. I was the every Wednesday night for 3 of the 4 years I was at Harvard. I went out to Walpole and taught an acting class, and in the final year we did a production that was written by the inmates, and I directed them at it. So,
wow!
So this is just a little bit of my background before I even went to graduate school to become a professor of theater.
Right, so that was early 70s.
Yes.
You graduated in 1973.
Correct.
I was just curious because I know how much that, which is the reason that we're here, how much that you love Thornton Wilder. And I know he passed away in 75. Did you ever get a chance to meet him during that time?
No, never did. The chance I had to really get to know Thornton Wilder didn't occur until I wrote my book, The Simple Stage. The way that happened was that actually is an evolution out of my dissertation. So I wrote my dissertation at NYU, New York University, under Michael Kirby, and the subject of my book, well, it became my book, but the dissertation was on the simple stage, the evolution of the simple stage in the American theater. Where did simplicity come from? So I went back to its roots in philosophy as well as in the other arts besides theater, as well as theater, and looked at how we got the simple stage. And of course, the last chapter of my book, The Simple Stage, is on Thornton Wilder. Yeah. So I looked at his early plays that led up to Our Town, and I spent a significant amount of time on Our Town itself. Yeah. And up to that point, I had not seen a production of Our Town, and I had never directed anything from Our Town or even Thornton Wilder in general. And that was in about 1991 when that book came out, The Simple Stage.
Yeah, so I was looking for that last night. I was going to see if I could try to get a copy of it. That's hard to get a hold of.
It is, and it's unfortunately it's very expensive. So, and I have no say on that.
Yeah, I know, I understand.
Yeah.
So you got your Master's of Arts from Berkeley, and
Yes.
then you got your PhD from New York University in 86. So then in 90, I'm sorry, you said 91?
91, I was a professor at
Yeah.
Trinity College in Hartford.
Yep.
And about the time that the Simple Stage was published, I was approached by a student named Craig Wurz, who
Yeah.
came up to me and said, Professor, I didn't know him. He hadn't been in any of my classes. He said, I really love the play Our Town, and I'd like to write music, and I'm actually in the process of writing music for it. Would you be willing to direct it with my music? And I
Wow.
listened to maybe one or two pieces and was completely enthralled, and I said, sure, let's do it. So that was in 1991.
Okay.
I directed Our Town with Craig's music. And it was, quite successful. And we had as our Emily, which is the lead role, as our Emily, we had a woman named Annie McNamara, who has been nominated for 2 Tony Awards.
That's a familiar name.
Yeah. The latest nomination she had was for Slave Play, which was on Broadway.
Okay.
And she was nominated for that. And she had a second, earlier nomination as well. Well, of course, she was a student at the time, and she auditioned, got the part of Emily. And so the production was, quite successful. But, the way college productions are, you're done with it, and you're done with it, and you go on to something else, and something else, something else, something else. So many years later, I was a professor at Indiana State University, and I got an email from Craig Wurz, and he said, I was thinking, would you be interested in reviving our town after all these years? And I've worked on the music. I've developed the music further than where it was in 1991. And would you be interested in doing it somewhere in the Midwest? Mm-hmm. At the time, I was the artistic director of Crossroads Repertory Theatre in Terre Haute, Indiana. Okay. And at that particular time, we didn't have the money to do a show with this large a cast. So I told him, well, I don't think we could do it here at Crossroads Rep, but let me keep in mind, maybe there'll be another place in the Midwest that might be interested. Yeah. So in the meantime, Andy Park, who I had worked with on several occasions on several projects, who had been the artistic director of Quest Theater in Chicago, was hired to be the artistic director at Nebraska Rep. And I pitched the idea to Andy. I said, this might be a really good project, and maybe I can do it, after I retire, so I can actually spend some time here in Nebraska. So he listened to the music. I think he saw the videotape of our town production from 1991. We had made a videotape, a student-run one. It wasn't very good quality, but it was fine. He got a chance to see it, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." So, and the rest is history. We've been working on it pretty much ever since.
Wow. Yeah. I want to say Quest Theater was the one that he founded.
He did found it,
it's a free theater.
It was a free theater, the way it worked. Yeah, it's no longer in existence, but I think it was for 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. It was totally free, and the way they did it, and it was actually a brilliant idea, at the very end of each show, they said, they basically passed the hat. Yeah. And they found that first of all, they had full houses. Yeah. And even if they had 20% of the people putting, a $20 bill or a $10 bill or a $5 bill, they were making more money than people who, the many theaters that were charging $20, $40 and had 10 people in their house,
Right.
or 20 people or 40 people, whatever. And they were actually doing, quite well.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I wish there were more experiments like that.
Oh, yes, I
Right?
agree. And it was a wonderful theater, and I saw many of their productions. Excellent, very high-quality work, and partly because of Andy's vision and his abilities as a director and artistic director.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Andy said, come on down to the rep and we'll do it here.
Come on down.
Come on
But
down.
with changes this time.
Right. So, there were changes back in 1991 also.
Okay.
I
More than
had
just now adding. So, because the music thing is, because it's not a musical. For those who haven't seen
Correct.
Our Town, it's not a musical. So we talk
Exactly.
about adding the music to it is essentially you're sort of almost like giving it a soundtrack almost.
Almost, yeah. It's really underscoring, mostly underscoring,
sure.
But there are times when the music is literally underscoring underneath dialogue, and there are times when the music kind of rises to prominence between scenes, moments within scenes, etc.
Okay.
So it's not a musical. There's no
Right.
singing except the singing that's already built into the play. There's some hymns that are
Yeah, a
sung,
couple of
and
hymns,
and
yeah.
those are traditional hymns, and those have not changed in any way. We use those traditional hymns, but we are working with this exquisite music. I mean, it is just gorgeous, and it's so interesting because right now we're in a rehearsal phase where the person who's playing the piano, Sal Nache, who is a wonderful musical director, but he's had to go over to work with the other musicians because it's a little orchestra. It's a piano quintet, piano, 2 violins, viola, and a cello.
Oh, wow.
That's the music. That's the orchestration.
Nice.
And so Saul, who has been playing the piano underneath our work now for maybe last week and a half, has had to go over to work with the other musicians and with the composer Craig Wers, as well as Charlie Alterman, who is helping with the orchestration. And so they're working independently from us. So the last few rehearsals have been without music. And it's really interesting because the music has become such a fundamental part of our production that it feels so funny. We feel kind of, naked without our music. It's just like it's our soul, it's our clothes, it's our essence, and that's a credit to the music. It's just exquisite.
It has really become a part of the production.
Oh, absolutely
Integral
part of the
production.
absolutely part of the production in a very deep way, and the underscoring has been very specific. Like we know that we want to end the music on this line, on this movement, on this moment when somebody crosses and hits this particular set piece. It stops or starts or whatever. So working that out has been a long and exciting process. One of the things that we did for that is that myself and 2 actors went to New York, and we sat down with the composer and with the orchestrator, and we sat down and read the script straight through from beginning to end. And they would stop us, and we would start again, and they would tinker with the music and say, well, this is a few too many bars, let's cut the bars, now read it again, okay, now. So we worked that way.
Wow.
Just 3 actors and the composer and the orchestrator, and we were kind of working together as a team, which was really an extraordinary and very exciting process.
Say, that's astounding, yeah. And you just went through the whole thing,
the whole
basically,
script.
essentially beat by beat almost.
Yes, we had we had
Holy
3 different actors. We had Christopher Austin, who's now the stage manager.
Okay.
We had Charles Adams, who did all the other male roles besides the stage manager.
Okay.
And then we had a woman named Becca, who I hadn't met until that time, and she read all the female parts.
Okay.
So it was just the 3 of us, and there were times when Charles would pick up some of the female roles if there were a lot of female roles in a scene, or Becca would take some of the male parts if there were a lot of male parts in the scene.
Okay.
So, but these are very very fine actors, and so they gave so much to the music. So we literally sculpted the music around these three actors, their voices, their intonations, the time it takes. And as the director, I would say things like, well, there's going to be some blocking here. They're probably going to be walking, I'd say, another 30 seconds. So we kind of, did a rough estimate of how much time the blocking would take in order to sculpt the music around that as well. And extraordinarily, a lot of that timing was very close once we actually got the whole cast there.
Really?
That's amazing.
It sounds absolutely fascinating. Can I do that? I want to do that.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
You'd be wonderful, Chris. I would love to have had you there. I would love to have had you there.
So you've just been directing for so long.
Long time.
And what have you done some roles as well in acting
As
that
acting?
you really?
I used to act a lot. I actually, in high school, that's all I did. I acted a lot. That was my theater experience, was acting. And then did a little bit of acting at Hartford my first year or two. And then I started to direct. And once I started to direct, I was now going back. I just fell in love with directing. And so stopped acting. The only acting I've done since then really is mask acting. I became very interested in mask acting technique and started teaching mask acting. And so I myself did Commedia dell'arte characters like Il Capitano and would do lecture demonstrations with the masks of the Commedia dell'arte as part of my lecture on Commedia dell'arte, which I did throughout the United States and Italy as part of Elder Hostel and things like that. So that was just little touches of acting. That's really the only acting I've done really since college.
But you have done a lot overseas then too. I think
Yes.
I read Poland was one,
right.
and
Yes.
was it Austria?
No,
There's,
Poland, Germany. So
Germany.
I wrote a play called Coming to See Aunt Sophie, who was about a Holocaust hero named Jan Karski. And when we knew it was going to be his, I think it's the 200th anniversary of his birth or something like that, they asked me to work on a play about him, about his life. So I worked on that play, and we got a very nice grant to take the cast, and we opened it in Germany at a festival in Germany, which is an incredible experience. Oh my God.
Cool.
It was one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life to do it in Germany. And then we also doing it in Poland, and he was a Polish hero, so we went to his hometown in Łódź and performed the play there, and other places, Warsaw, etc. We performed it on the grounds of the Warsaw Ghetto. And of course, and it was hugely moving because he actually, as a Catholic, he went into the Warsaw Ghetto in disguise so he could be a witness of what was happening there to the Jews that were dying of starvation, etc. And because he wanted to tell the world about it. And of course, his story is how he went first to England, then to the United States, to FDR himself, to tell him the story of what was happening in the Holocaust. So being on the grounds of the old Warsaw Ghetto and delivering that play was one of the most moving experiences. It was.
Yeah.
Poland
Wow,
is
I
wonderful.
can only imagine.
I had an opportunity to go to Poland, and I found Poland to be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. I
Polish
agree.
people just were just the greatest.
They
Oh my
were.
God,
They
we had
were.
So much
they
fun.
were. And the Germans were as well. The Germans welcomed us and the Polish people. I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better situation for doing it. But since then, Coming to See Aunt Sophie's been done in Australia and other places,
cool.
and a lot of places in the United States. So.
You've done a few stories, I mean, out of some of these real life experiences. I know you did Raisin in the Sun.
Yes.
So what are some of the contrasts
Sure.
that you've noticed just in doing that story as opposed to how we deal with slavery here in our history and how we go about honoring that and compensating for that?
Sure. Well, that's a really good question. When I came to Indiana State University, I came with the idea of doing initiatives, in what I called international initiatives. And when I first arrived, I brought some Russian actors, and we integrated with Russian actors, did Chekhov with members of the Moscow Art Theater. That was my first summer with the Crossroads Repertory Theatre, then called Summer Stage. The second year, we brought Germans, the same Germans who we ended up coming to see Sophie at their theater in Mannheim. They came over and we did The Jewish Wife by Bertolt Brecht, for example. We did Cabaret with Germans playing some of the German roles, etc.
Oh, cool.
Which was a bridge-building experience for me. We then had a Trinidadian initiative the following summer where we brought a group of Trinidadian actors, directors, choreographers, and did a brand new musical by my friend Tony Hall, who, by the way, this production is dedicated to his memory. He just died recently. And he also directed my play, Table 17, so I was very close to him. But anyway, that was a group that came to Terre Haute, Indiana. And after we finished our 4 years of this international initiative, I decided to do something that would be more of a national thing, but with a particular focus. We focused on the African American experience. I directed Raisin in the Sun, and Tony Hall from Trinidad came back and directed my play, Table 17, which was a play that I wrote based on my own past experience as a Jewish person growing up with African American domestics. And it was about the relationship between African Americans who had previously been domestics in this guy, the main character's home, based on my own experience. And Tony directed that and did a beautiful job. And since then, that play has gone to other places as well. But the Raisin in the Sun was in the context for me of doing what I considered, from my perspective, the greatest African American play. I just love that play. I've taught it for many years. So it was a thrill to direct it with a marvelous cast, including the lead role was played by a Trinidadian actor named Michael Cherry, who was a brilliant actor and who was now in movies and doing quite well. But
excellent.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yep.
What do you attribute? I mean, you've been able to do so much. What do you attribute to it? I mean,
well, I consider myself a bridge builder. I feel like that's what I was put on this earth to do, and I've always felt that I played that role in my family. I felt I played that role, and then later on, I felt like that was something I just really enjoyed doing, bringing people together who maybe had things in their past that kept them apart. So doing The Jewish Wife, for example, was an amazing experience because the woman from Mannheim who played the Jewish wife didn't know any Jews because there were no Jews in Mannheim for very sad and tragic reasons. She came to this country. I directed her in The Jewish Wife by Bertolt Brecht.
oh wow.
And my mother and father came and met with her so she would get to understand something about Jewish culture. My father met with the guy who played her husband, and he had known very few Jews in his life, and my father gave him a Yiddish lesson and things like that. And it was an incredibly moving experience for all of us because it was going back to World War II. Karen, who played the lead role in Jewish Wife, her father had fought on the Nazi side of things in World War II. My father had fought in the Battle of the Bulge on our side of things. And it was incredibly moving for us to kind of felt like we were healing old wounds by doing this. And interestingly, we took The Jewish Wife back to Mannheim after we did it in Terre Haute, Indiana. And I was given the key to the city, and so I was giving a presentation. I knew that Karen's father would be there. And my father said, it's very important to me, Arthur, that when you see him, you go to him and you shake his hand and say that I just want to shake your hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a absolutely moving experience. you've been able to.
And this is what I feel what I love about theater is theater enables us to do that.
Yes.
So when the Trinidadians were there, it was Americans with Trinidadians working on the same stage. With the Russians, I was working with Moscow Art Theater actors. We were doing Chekhov together, and we were learning from them. They were learning from us. And I feel that theater has this marvelous ability to heal wounds and build bridges. And I feel very proud that I've had the opportunity through theater to do that.
That is amazing, and it's amazing to have that experience, especially when you get somebody of the culture to do some of the works of their culture, and you get to experience that. And guys, and you got to go and to work with. I mean, that's amazing. And
healing.
Not everybody
at the
gets
same
that chance.
time.
Yeah, and so many things that are just so positive that come out of that, and there's really no way to undersell it. And it's one of those things that, like you said, we only get this in theater. Mm-hmm. We only get this. And movies, TV, fine, but you're looking at a box.
Right.
And I think, especially coming out of the pandemic and coming back into the theater, and you were talking about how some of your actors, this may have been the first time they've gotten back on the stage since the pandemic.
That's right.
And I think it's that old adage, you don't realize what you had until you lost it. And
Absolutely.
we kind of almost lost everything. And as we're getting back into theater, oh boy, is this a lot more important than we thought it was.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and the in-person, on the computer, on the TV's nice, but
Right.
it's not this.
And it's so
It's not
relevant.
this.
It's so relevant.
Yeah, very relevant.
And that's a good segue to our town, because this has been a huge bridge building experience for all of us. My concept of our town is that I'm imagining the stage manager who, it's unclear in the original production and in the script as written if he's an insider or an outsider. And what Wilder does with him is basically make him sort of with one foot inside or one side outside. One way he feels like he's part of the town, and some ways he's a bit of an outsider watching the town. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, let me think about the stage manager I want to build. And I have this wonderful, brilliant African-American actor named Christopher Austin, who's playing the stage manager. And the way I imagined it is that he would, I just imagined an African-American of about our time, a contemporary one, who is camping in the White Mountains and sees how beautiful the White Mountains are, and stumbles upon a little town called Grover's Corners in a little part of, in a valley in New Hampshire. And he lands there at night, and he lands in a graveyard. And he starts taking notes on the names of on the gravestones, and notices their years and when they lived, and realizes that, this person was married to this person. And this person died in childbirth because she was 23 years old when she died. And but must have been. And so he puts it all together, and he creates 1901 Grover's Corners based on these hours spent off of gravestones. Now, I stole that from Edgar Lee Masters, who kind of did something like that to create Spoon River Anthology. Okay. So I thought, well, why couldn't our town start like that? So the play starts in a graveyard. We see him with a knapsack and his bedroll, and he's taking notes in a notebook kind of like this, and we see him at the end of a long process of getting the names and figuring it out, and suddenly he has an epiphany. I see Grover's Corners. But he doesn't see it the way it probably actually was in 1901. He sees it the way he wished it were. The way he said, the Grover's Corner that I would like to think it could have been. And this Grover's Corners is a diverse world, a world where there is no prejudice, no intolerance, no restrictions that would prevent somebody from moving up to New Hampshire from New York or from wherever else. So we have the most diverse cast you have ever seen on a stage.
That's great.
And I love that fact.
Yeah.
And we are all working so well together. We are an ensemble of people from such different cultural and ethnic and religious backgrounds. And here we are all on the same stage, creating a Grover's Corners that should have been in 1901 if there was no prejudice and restrictions.
Sure.
Why couldn't there be? And what's great is we're using the text exactly as it's written. And of course, there's no mention of race, and there's no mention of religion, because there's no reason to, because Thornton Wilder wrote it for a white cast talking about white issues or whatever in 1901 Grover's Corners, which makes sense. And so we have the same text. And so we have a mixed cast with lots of diversity, and they never talk about race, and they marry each other, and they support each other, and they dance together, and they have this great time. And guess what? This is the 1901 that the stage manager imagines, which is one where they don't talk about race because it doesn't matter. Because we are a family, we work together, we're together, and this is the 1901 he wants it to have been.
Yeah.
And what I hope the audience walks away, and this is kind of Brechtian, and I think you'd appreciate the Brechtian aspect of this, is to think, well, why can't we have a society today where we don't talk about race? Not because it's not important, but we don't talk about it because it doesn't matter. There's no reason to talk about race unless it comes up. If it comes up as a cultural interest, for sure, no problem. But it doesn't come up as something to talk about as something, ooh, this person's marrying so-and-so, or this person is hanging out with so-and-so because they're different, because they're a different religion or a different race or a different ethnicity or whatever. They don't talk about it. Why? Because the 1901 of the stage manager's imagination is the one that, and why can't we live like that? Why can't we have that side? And that's the vision that we are sharing with the audience. We're imagining 1901 very specifically to say, in a Brechtian way, to walk out thinking, why can't America be like this?
What if? Yeah.
What if? And why not start now? Well, they didn't do that in 1901, but hey, we can start that right now if we want to, if we have the courage to do it.
I think that's a really clever way of looking at it, and I was struck, and I wasn't struck until I actually thought about it afterwards. It is very, and not in an insulting way. It's very simply and plainly written, but very brilliantly written. Yeah. I think you could be anybody and see yourself, your family, your community in that show. I almost think it doesn't matter where you're from. And I think that's part of the brilliance. Well, yeah, it's a big part of the brilliance of it. And it's written, and I want to say generically, because that's not correct.
Yeah.
But
I would say he gets,
maybe is a better word.
Well, the word that I used a lot in my chapter on Thornton Wilder back in 1991 was essential, the essence of humanity.
Yes, there you
go.
That
he gets beneath culture to the essence of what makes us tick, what's our deepest humanity. And I think this is why someone like Edward Albee said that Our Town was the greatest American play, because I think Thornton Wilder succeeded where so many playwrights didn't quite get there, maybe tried but didn't quite get there, to get to the essence of our humanity.
Yeah.
And that's why it can work with great diversity as well as with non-diversity. It is an essentialized story. It's showing characters he gets right down to the soul of the character with very few words, with very efficient words.
Yes.
And enables us to enter into it ourselves and use it as a way to bridge between groups, between people. And I think Thornton Wilder would be very happy with that. We don't change the text. We're legally bound not to, and I feel that that's not a limitation. That is a freedom to me. It's a freedom that now I could using the text, that's my discipline. My discipline is the text. And now I have the added discipline of the music. In other words, we have to function within the music. We have to function within this amazing text. But within those bounds, we are totally free, and we have the ability to cut to the essence of what this playwright is doing, and the music helps us because the music is very essentialized. I did not ask Craig to go in the direction of many cultures because the whole point of the play is to get beneath culture, to get to the essence of sound, the essence of humanity that is not culturally specific. Yeah. So, in an earlier thought, I said, well, let's have somebody with a Hispanic accent and somebody with a Trinidadian accent and somebody, and then I realized because the journey of the play as we're doing it is to get underneath culture and even to get, as my director's note says, underneath individual difference to the essence that connects all of us, which is, and when you get to Act 3, it is not about, that's the beauty of that act, is that we are in a world of essences. We are, that is one of his great creations and probably one of the greatest acts ever written in the American theater. As great as Act 1, Act 2 are, Act 3 takes us to a place that I don't think any playwright prior to 1938 was able to get us to. I think we got close in plays like The Adding Machine and some of Eugene O'Neill's plays, but I think when you get to Act 3, he takes us to a place of the deepest place of who we are as human beings.
It was really unexpected watching it. I didn't expect Act 3 to be like that, and not that it's drastically different.
Yep.
But it's each act of the play seems to, I guess, maybe dig a bit deeper, maybe go a little bit deeper as you sort of follow the sort of main-ish couple, but it's about other folks too, but through their relationship, and then the end.
Right.
But that was kind of the thing that he had a little bit of a writer's block finishing the story. So it probably
he had a hard time with the third act.
Doesn't sound like it was in his mind to begin with. The ending wasn't in his mind when he started it.
But when he nailed it, boy, he knew he nailed it. You see it in his letters, and he was ecstatic because he realized he hit pay dirt.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's extraordinary and extraordinarily challenging, and it has to. I keep telling the actors, we just have to be perfect with it because it's pure poetry. Visually, it has to be right on the money, and with this music, we have a big advantage because the music takes us to a very deep place.
I can't imagine. See, I can't imagine watching this with music.
And now I can't imagine watching it ever again without
music.
Oh.
Yeah.
And without Craig's music, to be perfectly honest with you. And of course I'm not objective in saying that, but but seriously, the actors are saying, because we've lost the music for the last 3 rehearsals, 2 rehearsals, they all say, I feel like we've lost our best friend. It's just amazing. And now I look at it, and I still love what the actors are doing. I'm very proud of the work they do. The designers have done exquisite work. But the music is kind of the soul of what we're doing. And without it, we just felt like we're missing our soul. So I am so excited about sharing this with the folks in Nebraska, and of really revisiting, because we have reimagined our town through our town. We have not changed it. There's no change of one. The words are the same as on the page, but we've reimagined it with a contemporary stage manager who wants to bring us all together. who wants to see 1901 America if there was no previous slavery, if there was no previous Jim Crow laws, if there was no, if a person from South Asia living in New York City who had the money and would not be hit with real estate restrictions and would be able to move to New Hampshire and be the doctor who's the doctor in the Gibbs family. The idea is that what would that world have looked like in 1901? And now that we see that, let that be an inspiration for us in 2022. Mm-hmm. That we can be a mixed society and truly a melting pot, a melting pot, not a surface melting pot, but a deep melting pot where we appreciate each other, we celebrate each other. And this, is connected to my work as the president of the Interfaith Council of the Wabash Valley, which I'm very proud of. Mm-hmm. It's an organization of people from all different religions, all different ethnicities, and we work together on combating hate and taking a stand for religion, protecting faith, so. Every meeting that we have, I feel we're building bridges between diverse groups. And so this play is part of the same, sort of overall thing that I do in my life is feels like it's bringing people together and saying, hey, we share our humanity. We all face death. We all face suffering. We all, long for love. And that's what unites all of us, and don't let anything separate us.
Yeah. I can see why you're such a Thornton Wilder aficionado on it.
Yeah, he got there first. He got there long before I did. Yeah, he did. He loved humanity, and he was a very strict observer of human beings, and it comes across in every line. And he was a marvelous writer. He was a very succinct and poetic, a subtly poetic writer. Yeah. I think the achievement of Our Town was extraordinary, and to live with this play now for so long. I mean, I've taught it for many years and directed it in 1991. Here I am directing it in 2022, and it's become part of my own heart, and so sharing it with this people in this wonderful state that I've gotten to know so much better is a joy and a privilege and an honor.
Well, we're honored to have you and all of your experience to direct this play. It's thank you for coming to Nebraska.
Sure.
All the way from Indiana.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of wonder from Thornton Wilder, I think maybe him growing up in China maybe helped him be more of an observer.
Yeah. Yep, it did.
Of our culture.
It did.
Yeah.
And his father being an ambassador and having that experience both when he was abroad, but also even in his own life, he was a person who loved to travel. He just loved to travel, and he traveled everywhere. And he made himself at home because I think he just identified with humanity wherever it was, and was able to build bridges himself with all kinds of people. And I think that's what makes his writing so wise and deep and human. So it's such a privilege to live with Thornton Wilder in directing this play, and I have to say I also want to call out the wonderful designers that I have who've been with me at every stage. I mean, I really think people will come and see a beautiful stage that will be gorgeous to look at. The set is beautiful.
What kind of set? Yeah, I was curious because.
Well, it's very interesting that you asked that, and I'm happy to talk about it. It's I always felt it should start in a graveyard because as part of the story I'm telling is this, this stage manager who's been traveling all around, walking the White Mountains and comes to this graveyard. So I felt it had to start in the graveyard.
Okay.
So we see him at the tail end of a process that he's going through where he's taking notes on their stuff. So we have to have the graveyard. So I said, well, okay, what would this graveyard look like? And I did some research and looked at a lot of graveyards, and I found a ruin of a church, of an old church that had gone to seed, but the archway, the main archway, had become the entryway into a cemetery. And I said, that's the kind of cemetery I'd like people to enter into. So literally, they go through an old ruin that has moss growing on it and all that, and through this beautiful archway, and they come in through, and there are these graves, and we see, a bunch of graves. We don't know who those graves are when we first get there,
Right.
but gradually we start to realize, and then we sort of bookend the whole play with the graveyard. So it begins with the graveyard, and Act 3 is in the graveyard. So that's what we see. And what happens is we transform it by turning it around. You have a domestic scene, but the way the domestic appearance is it's the structure of a house before it's had the drywall put on. So we just see the wood structure of the house, because just as Wilder's getting to the essence of humanity, I wanted the essence of a house, not an actual house. Okay. So we have you see the lattice work of the stairs leading up, etc., and that's where George and Emily are doing their homework on the second platform high up. Okay. So traditionally it's done on ladders. And we do have ladders, but our ladders are subordinate to this image of a stripped-down house, which is the other side of the ruin. So it moves twice. So once it starts as a ruin, then becomes this kind of essential house, and then it goes back to the ruin at the very end. Okay. And that's also a simple stage technique that, I told you about the book I wrote, The Simple Stage. So not only does that book culminate in Our Town and the empty stage idea, but through the course of the book, I look at other strategies of simple stage, and one of them is called the permanent setting. A permanent set is where there's one piece of architecture that you have through the whole play that stands for the whole play. It becomes a symbol of the play. Yeah. So Robert Edmund Jones was the great designer of that. For example, for Hamlet, he had one big hallway, one giant arch, and the whole Hamlet was done with that giant arch. Yeah. And no matter where you went in Hamlet, you always saw part of the arch. They would light it in such a way where you'd see all the arch or half of the arch or just a piece of the arch, but you'd always see at least part of the arch. Well, that idea of the permanent setting was the idea behind this ruin that then pivots around, and we see both sides of the ruin. And we always see the ruin. You never stop seeing the ruin. So you're always aware that our death is always with us. It's always on our shoulder, wherever we go. And I got that idea not only from Thornton Wilder, but from Rilke and other people who've had a big influence on me. So when you see, I won't spoil. I don't want to spoil it, but if people come, I think they'll enjoy seeing how the grave and images from the grave feed into our everyday life in our production, so that you're always aware. And Thornton Wilder was always aware that we're always, our death is part of who we are and what we take around with us.
For sure.
Wow. That's amazing. So you can't change the script, but you're able to do this at the beginning of, because it's not part of the normal script, but you're able to add these things. Yeah.
As long as we don't use any language, it's all, and we even put in a dance. We put in 2 dances that are not in the play as written. One is a dance mime that's in the beginning of the piece, and at the end of Act 2, which is the wedding, the love and marriage, we have another dance that we added, which is not in the play as written, but is perfectly compatible with the action. In other words, it doesn't, hopefully won't feel like it's, pasted on or something.
It always fascinates me, what the constraints are of a script and how you can go about enhancing
Well,
it and not change it. That's
Right.
always very
Right.
fascinating to me.
That's the challenge.
Well, and when you've got a good script like this, you can really be sort of amazed at how much leeway you have without changing anything.
Right.
And you could do the same thing 3 times, the same show 3 times, and have it come out 3 different ways.
Absolutely.
With 3 different directors who want to show you something different, and nobody changed a single syllable of the script.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what I teach when I teach directing. I said, every production should look different,
Yeah.
and yet use the exact same text. And
Yep.
Wow. And you've done a lot of dance in your background, right? You've done some dance yourself?
Well,
or-
and I'm not a dancer, God knows, but I actually was in a theater and dance department at Trinity College, and that always made me think, how can I use dance? And I've become, I think, one of the traits of my directing is that I often use dance. Sometimes there is a dance in what I do, like when I directed Godspell or The Fantastics, there are dances sort of built into it. But then sometimes I find a way to use dance that's not necessarily obviously in the script because of, I guess, being in a theater and dance department. I just was seeing a lot of dance and grew to love dance and felt that it was a way of expressing that goes beyond what language can do. So it was nice to be able to use it.
Yeah. Wow, I can't wait to see this production.
Thank you. Well, I'm
think it's
excited
gonna
about
be
sharing it with
amazing.
you.
Love to. Yeah, this is kind of a unique experience. Somebody, with the addition of music to such, a classic play that has been produced more than any other play in history, I think.
I
Or
think I read it was been produced 4,000 times in the last decade. Is what
just
I
in the last
read.
10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Right.
So I kind of think this is a big deal. It's like, oh, we're adding music to our town. It's like, oh, hold on, say that again.
Right.
Yes.
That's it's it's an American staple.
It is. It
So
is.
what is next on the horizon for you?
Well, that's exciting. I do a lot of writing, which I'm working on several plays, actually, that I'm very excited about. One I just started since I've been in Nebraska, and that's been thrilling to start to work on that. An adaptation of a play by Ibsen. And it's too early to talk about it, but
Okay.
it's really fun. I'm really excited
Okay.
about working on it.
Wow.
Also, one of my former students, who's a brilliant playwright, is working on a play about Eugene V. Debs, and I have all plans to direct that play. He's been working on it for maybe 5 years, and what he's doing is extraordinary, and really looking forward to that. It's a 2-part piece. There'll be two plays, 2 parts about the life of Eugene V. Debs, and it's extraordinary. So I'm looking forward to directing that. I look forward to going back to the Interfaith Council of the Wabash Valley. I've sort of been on a sort of little bit of a leave from it because of course, it's so demanding to be involved in a production like this.
Right.
But they've soldiered forth with, I have a wonderful executive committee who's doing a great job of keeping the ball rolling there. But it'll be fun to go back there. I'm looking forward to that. So, I have a large agenda. I'm working harder since I've retired.
I was going to say, it's a
when
good
I
thing
was
you
teaching.
retired.
Yeah.
You have time for all this stuff you're doing.
Right. Will you have to travel for your
great, though.
projects that you're doing now? You'll have to travel again, or?
I'm hoping first. I'm really looking forward to getting home.
Yeah.
Sure.
I have a dog and a cat, and
Oh,
my
absolutely.
wife, and my life there is, of course, really important to me too. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that as well. But it's been great being here. The folks in Nebraska are very friendly, very warm, welcoming. I couldn't ask for better than that, and to have such talented people to work with at Nebraska Rep, designers and technicians and administrative staff. It's really been a team effort. All of us have worked so well together as a team. I couldn't ask for a better. And when you hit my age, you start to think, you don't know what's going to be your last play. And I like to think that I approach all the projects I work on now as if it were going to be my last. I hope it's not, but it's in hands much bigger than mine of what actually is going to happen. But I like thinking I'm going to make this play, the best play I possibly can, because if it's my last, I want it to be everything it could possibly be.
Oh, wow.
Whether it will or not, we'll see. But it's nice to feel that I have the team to do it right, and I couldn't be more thankful for that.
Wow, well, we're just so thankful to have you, just a great talent to come here and to produce this and to work with us.
Thank you.
To talk with us today. We're very privileged.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank
It really
you.
has.
Can't wait to see it.
Yes, can't wait to see it. And I'll say it right this time. It's Dr. Arthur Feinsod. I
Yes.
apologize, Professor.
That's okay.
He is directing the upcoming Our Town at the Nebraska Repertory Theatre.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and supporting the arts in the Platte River area and beyond. Please subscribe to our podcast so you are sure to catch all of our future episodes and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Music for this podcast was used with permission by Screaming Skull Productions. See you next time on the Platte River Bard.